Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Up Your Confidence podcast, where we bring you conversation to empower, to equip, and to elevate you, to up your confidence every day, and to live your God-given full potential. I'm excited today for another conversation, and today my guest is going to be Limor. And Limor, I'll get to read her bio for you guys. So Limor is an executive coach for ambitious women in tech that want to get to the next level in their careers and achieve more through a result-oriented coaching process. Women she work with say Limo enable them to continuously tear down ceiling by challenging them to think bigger. They also say she opened their eyes to a new way of contributing to their career. Limo loved talking about career progression in the tech industry and how to build your brand in the company and externally. Limo is married with 4 children. She loves running, working out at the gym while listening to electronic music. Awesome. Welcome, Limo, to the Up Your Confidence podcast.
Hi, Lisette. It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I always love to start talking about how I meet people. So I met Lumor to another podcast friend that introduced us because I guess as she met Limor, she remind her of me because we both in the tech and I'm really grateful to her. And I talked with Limor and I've been on her podcast recently and I've been planning to have her on the podcast. So I'm so excited to have you here. I always love to tell my audience how I meet people, right?
Yeah.
So today our conversation is going to be on career coaching. And this is a favorite topic of mine because I mean coaching is something that I think we all need to like get on board with, right? So and before we started, I was telling you that our audience is between the age of 35 and 59 because I'm a data a data person, so I always like to know who are the people that are listening to us. So I want our conversation today to be geared toward that target audience. So before we start everything, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, and how did you get into coaching, career coaching, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career in tech as a software engineer. So I studied computer science and accounting, but I don't know why I studied accounting. It's really not, I really don't like it. But I started as a software engineer and at some point decided that I wanted to manage. So I became a manager and then a director of engineering. And along the way, I created a family and raised a family of 4 children. And I'm married, as you mentioned, and we moved also quite a bit. So I'm reside in Israel. We moved to the US, within the US, and we moved back. A lot of changes, a lot of changes. And along the way, so we started how did I reach coaching? Something happened. I mean, first of all, my passion towards women in tech grew as my career grew because it was hard. It was hard for me. I didn't have enough role models. I had to push myself forward
Mm.
instead of waiting for someone to notice me. And I realized that that's what I need to do. And it took me several years to realize that. So I figured, okay, how many women actually face the same challenge? I try to make an influence in companies I worked at, try to hire more women to my org and help women in my org grow. And I started mentoring in 2017 as a voluntarily and helping other managers. And and somewhere along the way it clicked that, you know, because I'm so passionate about it, I invested a lot of my time towards supporting women. I was involved in company ERGs, and I figured, like, if I'm so passionate about it, why don't I just focus on that full time rather than do it as a side hustle?
Mm. Right.
And what's a better time than, you know, when I moved back here? You know, I moved back to Israel, already a big change. I said, why not make another, you know, another
Another
big
big change.
change? Yeah, and that's kind of how I decided to change my path.
Awesome. That's lovely. You gave a lot of information there. So you mentioned that, it was kind of like a passion for you. So where do you think that passion come from, for you to help women? I'm really curious about that.
So it's a combination. I mean, I think a lot of that is that I relate to it personally, right? Because I am a woman. I worked in tech. I know firsthand the challenges that women face in the tech industry. So I want to give back to others. I know the struggles that women are going through. And I really want to see more women in executive roles. We don't see enough women there. We don't have a lot of women founders, and I want to see more women. So it's making an impact on this planet, feeling like actually what I do makes an impact.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And so you mentioned like women not having role model, right? Let's
Yeah.
talk about, and also not having a role model. So you become a director. So you kind of now playing the role model to most of the women. And you also mentioned that you hire a lot of women. And I love that because I think that is when you get the door open for you, you have to hold the door for other women, which usually does not happen because we always expecting other people to do the work while we can do it. So I love that you mentioned that you were a role model, but also hiring more women. So what impact did you get by hiring more women?
So first, giving the opportunities for women, to get a job, to get a good job at a good company, and flourish there and advance their careers, giving them the opportunity. I did that by reaching out, intentionally to women, because a lot of times women don't apply to positions they don't feel they qualify 100% to all the job descriptions. And we all know that the job descriptions are not inclusive typically.
Yeah.
So I think the greatest impact is just giving the opportunity to women that otherwise maybe would not choose to do that themselves.
Right. I agree. I agree. And what kind of challenge did you face being a woman leader, right? An executive and trying to bring more women to an organization?
So for bringing more women, it was always about how do I balance between, I don't want that people in my org and in the company in general will feel that I accepted someone just because she's a woman. It was always important for me to hire someone who is good, who qualifies, rather than just, okay, it's a woman, she knows how to code, so let's hire her. So that was one of the main challenge. And as for myself, it was always a challenge for me to push myself forward, to make myself more noticeable, to get the exposure that I need and deserve.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because my next question is around the challenge, right? Because you did mention that at the beginning you had a lot of challenge, you didn't have any role model and you didn't even have mentoring as well. So how were you able to overcome those challenges?
A lot of support. I did have my first mentor when I became a manager, but before that, I mean, my husband pushed me. He supported me and pushed me to apply to a manager position. I didn't think that I will get it. I was pregnant with my second child, 8 months pregnant, and there was an opening in for management position in the company I worked for. I had advocates, people who advocated for me, who knew me, actually men that knew me and advocated for me. So it's very important to get, advocates within the company that you work for. And believing in myself. So getting a support group around you, people who rally for you, who believe in you. It could be people that from your personal life, right? Your spouse or friends, or it could be people from work that believe in you.
Right. Yeah, those are all great example. And I love that you mentioned your husband because I believe if you are married or just having a support as an executive woman, the support has to start from your family unit, because that's where you're gonna always reside and come back to, right? And now let's talk about coaching because that was good information. Now, when you coach women, right? how do you go about it? Like, let's say I'll just give you a scenario. You have because I'm looking at the data, right? Most women in their 30s, they probably have a couple of years of experience and they are looking at going to the next level, elevating, what would be your advice, to them of like, what should be the game plan if you starting and you want to elevate to the next level, maybe to a senior role or even just get more leadership role?
Great. So first of all, know what you want. A lot of times you'll be surprised, but a lot of times people like coach, they don't know exactly what they want. So realizing first, I work with them on identifying their passions, what they like doing versus what they don't like doing, whether the current job or in general, and identifying their strength, what are they good at, whether they list it to themselves or ask for feedback, whether it's from family and friends or from colleagues, ex-colleagues, and so forth. So first of all, I start with that, and then realizing, okay, what are the options for you, whether it's within the company or elsewhere, kind of opening their horizons to what is possible as a next step and marking that as a goal. Okay, this is what I want. And let's say we'll take a trivial example. Let's say you are a manager and you want to become a director at the company you work for. Okay, you want to advance your career. So you know what you want. That's great. Check. Now, the next step would be first to share it. Share it with your manager, share it with a jar. They cannot, they cannot guess that that's what you want.
Okay.
A lot of times as women, we shy away from broadcasting what we want. We feel, oh, maybe that's not something I should talk about. Maybe I should just wait for someone to notice me and basically promote me. That's not how it works. You should broadcast it, not to say, oh, I want a promotion now, but make your intentions clear. That's what I want in my career.
Mm-hmm.
After you made that clear, work with your manager and with your HR business partner to identify what are the expectations from the next role and what are the gaps that you have. So your manager and HR business partner can help you build a plan towards that. And it's their job. That's their job to support you in your career growth. And that's what I was doing for people that reported to me. I was building with them together a career progression plan. It could take time. It could take 6 months. It could take a year. It could take longer. It depends. But it's important that you have a plan and constantly ask for feedback.
Yes. Okay. Love that. I think you gave the whole game plan. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. And the couple of things that you mentioned, right? So know what you want, identify your passion. I think that's like, regardless you have a job today or not. And because what I observe is and then you also mentioned define your option, right? So I want us to talk about branding because I know that's something that you also coach people around, right? Branding on LinkedIn or wherever. But I feel like just knowing what you want, knowing your passion, and defining your own brand. Can we talk about that? Because I want to decouple, at least that's how I like to think about it. Decouple people what they want versus what the company is providing, because sometimes maybe you want to be X and the company is not going in that direction, right? So it's good when you have a good baseline of what do you want. So how would you talk about people creating the brand? How would they approach
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. So obviously it depends on the situation. But I had a coachee that worked in QA, similar background to you.
Yes.
And when we started working, we identified that actually what she wants is to become a DevOps engineer. That's what she wanted. And then we started figuring out, okay, what are the things that are missing? And she realized that she has a lot of skills and knowledge that are super relevant to DevOps. So she actually can do that role today. So what we did in her case, she wanted to move to another job, to another company. We started working on her LinkedIn profile and branding herself, not as QA, but as a DevOps engineer. It kind of sounds tricky, right? Because that was not the title that she had.
Right.
But it's actually possible because what is important is to showcase your skills, your ability, your experiences, and not so much be focused on the title. A lot of
Right.
women feel uncomfortable saying, oh, I'm a DevOps, but actually, oh, I didn't have that title. Well, I'm not suggesting to lie, but you can still put on your headline DevOps if you have the skills. If you have the skills to do that role, why not? Why not broadcast that?
Right.
If you do it within the company, then you have to really expose your skills. As I said, broadcast your intentions and maybe look for opportunities to do above and beyond your role and showcase your abilities. So if I'm taking that woman just as a case study, as an example, let's say she wanted to move to DevOps within her company, then I would suggest, okay, start building the relationships and the connections with the relevant people. Maybe offer support or help, and learn and share. Show your abilities. You need to kind of show your abilities. You can do it within the company by maybe mentoring others, maybe offering, some support and help, or you can maybe talk in virtual conference or in conferences about what you know. Start showing your abilities.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. Broadcast your intention, definitely make it clear, build the plan, right?
Yeah.
And you also mentioned about your skill, focusing on your how you can market your skill. I usually do like a skill set analysis with people because usually what happen, and you use the keyword example, is people have skill set, especially women that want to get in tech. Right, like maybe they were a teacher. I had somebody that was coaching last year. They were a teacher, and now they want to get in some kind of tech, right? So a skill set, you can't just say I was just a teacher. I mean, I can't even be a teacher. I love teaching, but especially if you are a teacher for like elementary school, that's some skill set of like keeping kids having attention, creating your curriculum. So you can start trying to figure out how this skill set that I had here can be transferred on this other side. So having ability to transfer your skill and marketing is important. The question that I have for you is, and I don't know if you have encountered this. For us women, I feel like to get to the next level, since that's what the conversation, we always feel like we need to get another degree. So what do you do in coaching, to women that always feel like they need to pile on a degree or get certification? And I'm prefacing that by saying continuous learning and continuous improvement is the way to go. But what is okay, how do we strike the balance of like degree versus just trying to focus in on building our skill and our brain?
Yeah, that's a great question. I also had several women that were kind of challenging themselves with that and thought that they need to pursue a degree. I'm not against certifications or degree, but I'm more for asking why. Why do you need that? What is that degree going to provide that you don't have today? What kind of knowledge what are you going to gain other than just a certificate? What are you going to gain? And how elsewhere can you get that? Also, what is the cost? Cost, I don't mean just by tuition. But if, for example, a woman thinks that in order to get, let's take like a theoretical example. Let's say a woman thinks that if she wants to get to management and to executive roles, she need to pursue an MBA. Now, I'm not against an MBA, but that's not a requirement.
Right.
And it will take her time, right? It will take her at least a year. She may not be able to work, or she will have to sacrifice her work or work part-time. And then what are the gains? And how elsewhere can she progress? So I was always asked the why, what are you going to gain? And how else can you get to where you want? What are the other options? And when we start thinking about that, then they realize that actually they may not need it. They may still want it. I had a coachee that really wanted a degree, and I challenged her with the same things. And yes, after coaching with me, she realized she don't have to, but she felt she wanted to. That's what she wanted. That's okay. If eventually, if you want to pursue a degree, that's fine. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, I love your answer because on this podcast we talk about confidence, right? And confidence building is something you have to do every day, right? And it's also depend of your ability, your skill set, and it comes with experience. But in my talk with women, I always feel like, it comes back to the lack of confidence in themselves. So I don't know if you have encountered that, in the career coaching or building women career. How does confidence play into the women that you talk to?
It's in every woman that I coach. It comes. Every woman. I don't think there's one woman that I coach that didn't have confidence issues. And we always work towards it, right? About, as I said, looking at the skills, at strength, looking back at achievements, asking for feedback, recognizing what she already have done, even just reflecting to them back, right? Look at what you have achieved so far. It helped them to build a confidence, identifying who they should spend time with that helps lift them up. So many women are surrounded, not just women, but in general, people are surrounded by people who bring them down. We need to remove as much as possible all those toxic people around us, or maybe not even toxic, maybe just people who are negative, right? You probably met people who are always negative, always like complain. They're not bad people, but they don't help us. They don't help us build the confidence. So try to surround yourself with people who help build who inspire you.
Right. I love that answer. People that inspire you. And that's a yes for me too, because I think like we wake up every day, let it be at because when you were saying like having people that inspire you, I'm like, it better not be your family that is being negative, because that will already just be the root of your problem, right? So at least make sure that the family member are not being negative or not inspiring you. So that's why I feel like the family support is important. But every day, right? Because we get to go to work, and then we have a confidence challenge. I like to call it. So how do you build your confidence habit is extremely important. So that's great. Let's go back to something that you mentioned at the beginning, because I do take a lot of notes when I'm talking to folks. And you talk about mentoring, and I want to go back to that. In company, well, what is your suggestion to people on how to find a good mentor or somebody to mentor them?
There are several options. It's either organically happening with people you work with. So for me, the first mentor, it was organic. It was a former manager that I met and appreciated. He inspired me. And I just ask, not officially be my mentor, but more as, can I talk to you? I need some advice. And then it became something that was, I wouldn't say on a set schedule, but I was meeting with him regularly. So he was my first mentor. So it can just happen organically with people you know and can ask for help. People usually like helping others.
Yes.
Or you can just find different programs, different companies. There's so many today, right? Because fortunately, mentorship is something that becomes kind of a norm today. And many organizations offer that. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. There are a lot of organizations that support women and minorities and offer mentorship, offer free mentorship. So just take a look and find, maybe some external.
Right. You also mentioned about ERG, which is something that I'm super curious about. And what is the value of ERG in an enterprise and for women especially? What should a woman get? There's an ERG happening in your company. Should you tap in? Why should you tap in?
Definitely. So first of all, you need to be passionate about it. And let's take an example of women in tech, right? I mean, well, not all women want to be active about it, and that's okay. First of all, you want to be willing to do something extra that is not part of your day-to-day job. You need to want it because you want to make an impact. It goes beyond yourself and your own position. If you don't want it, don't go there. It's a waste of time. So I think that's the first thing. The benefits, I mean, as I said, making an impact, right? I mean, it's a group of people that are passionate about something. So in our case, women, it can be something else, it can be people of color, it can be a lot of other things.
Right.
Making an impact, helping each other, and then you get exposure to different people. For example, in my case, I was able to connect with our chief people officer, like the head of HR of the company, and then I convinced her to offer some engagement with another company, Power to Fly, that I consulted with later, to bring the voice of women and to help us hire women. So you build that connections, which help you not just personally on your career, but helps you make an impact. For companies, it's super important to form those ERGs, or to allow those ERGs to form, because those people need voice. They need their voice to be heard. And it's very important for people to feel like the company encourages different voices, opinions, and allow those people. There need to be some executive sponsor that will actually be willing to support it. It doesn't mean necessarily just monetary support.
Yes.
It can be money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you need a budget for doing certain activities, but it can be just supporting them to make something. It can be something even internally within the company that will not cost anything, maybe just people's time. So you need an executive sponsor that will back you up and push your ideas.
Totally, I agree. Let's talk about allyship. Women in tech, women in tech, women in tech. But women don't work. I mean, the reason why women in tech we are passionate about is because we are so few. I've spent the last 2 decades of my career trying to get little girl to get in STEM program. Those little girl are now probably in college. They're already trying to go to the university. So women don't work in silo. They work with men. So what can we teach women, or when you coach women, about working with men in the tech industry?
Men are not our enemies, first of all. We just need to find those that believe in us and are willing to help. And there are a lot of them, as I mentioned, right? My first mentor, for example, he actually helped me to get to the position of engineering manager because he spoke on my behalf. I asked him, as my former manager, if you can speak on my behalf, because the hiring manager didn't know me. So find those people, build the relationships with them, with people that you connect to, you feel like you share similar values, show them your capabilities and how, and offer to help them as well, not just ask for help, but also offer help. And don't be afraid to share opinions and get their support when you need it.
Yeah, I love that. That's why I talk about allyship, because I feel like that is the key piece for women, right? Because you can find yourself in an organization where you're the only woman. So how are you gonna advance? There's no other woman. The other woman is probably in logistic, which is not in the area where you want to grow. So having an ally, and I love the fact that you mentioned, look for similarity. I think that's really a good way to look at it. For me, I'm always feeling like connection. You got to connect with people, right? And the value that you both have is how you connect. So the topic that always come when we're talking about women in tech is diversity and inclusion, right? So the bigger topic is like, how do we make women feel included and belong in the workforce? Because I feel like the reason why we don't have a lot of women, and I'm curious about your take into this. A lot of women come into tech. First of all, it's difficult to get in tech, and the retention number are not great also. So how will company, if you were advising or coaching even an executive, in a company, how will they go about, retention around women and, allowing them to feel included and belong in the workforce? Long question, but
yes. So first of all, so if you're an executive and you have a woman in your org, or maybe few women, and you want to make sure that they're included, first of all, I mean, you have to make sure that your culture is
yep,
supportive of people from different backgrounds.
right.
And there are no biases, or reduce biases as much as possible, and do not tolerate a behavior that is in any way, shape, or form, I would say, abusive or not inclusive. It depends, right? I mean, I have been in so many companies that it was acceptable that someone will not include you in a meeting, or someone will not speak appropriately to me, and no one did anything about it, and people know, oh, this person is a jerk, but no one, just the fact that you leave people like that in your organization and you allow that kind of behavior is the problem. So no tolerance to those kind of people. I'm not saying that you have to let someone go if they are not behaving. You have to work with them, and if they don't change, then you may want to consider which kind of people you want to include. And then make sure that you provide the opportunities for those women to grow, that you help them bring their voice, that you help them advance in the way that they need from you. It takes sometimes effort in order to identify those people. I always, as I was managing, I was looking at people that were more introverted, more quiet, and try to figure out how to help them. How to help them showcase their abilities, how to help them find what their next step is. Because it's always easier with people that come to you and say, oh, I want to do this. I want to do, at least what they want, and you help them. What about people who don't say anything?
Right.
Those are, and a lot of times those are women. Those are the people that you need to put your attention on and help them.
Yep, totally. I mean, you have the blueprint, of how a great executive should behave. You have to really be intentional. That's what you mentioned at the beginning, and I think that is definitely important. For me, I feel like, the no tolerance of allowing jerk in your company is a cancer to the growth, right? Because you also mentioned the culture. You cannot say that you have an inclusive culture, but then when something happened with Joe on this side, we feel like Joe is such a good coder or such a good, DevOps guy, so we can't get rid of Joe. But at the end of the day, Juanita might have to leave the company because, she doesn't feel value. She doesn't feel that her voice is heard. So when you coach women, how do you coach them about it? Because for me, that's a difficult things, right? Of like, okay, you are in a company that is super toxic. As a woman, I feel like we coach women to, at least in the past 10 years or in my generation, I feel like the conversation that we're having today is actually very refreshing. We didn't have a lot of those conversations in the past, right? Or even say, oh, there's a jerk in the company, let's do something about it. Those conversations didn't happen like 10 or 15 years ago. So, and I feel like we have taught women of my generation to just accept it, and when we accept it for so long, there's some detriment to ourselves. So let's talk about that. Because the reason why women leave work or the retention number are not good is because we don't feel belong. And at the end of the day, it goes back to our family, right? It impacts our mental health. So let's shift gear and talk about a little bit of that. What is the impact to women if we don't get the proper support in organization? And how do you coach women around that?
Yeah, so obviously it hurts them emotionally and eventually create a toll on them and limit their ability to grow. Because the more you work in a toxic environment, the less you believe in yourself and your abilities. Now, not always you can impact that. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it depends on the company. As I said, I worked in companies that there are some people who were, and everyone knew that they are only taking care of themselves, that are not,
So what did you do?
sometimes.
Did you leave or did you just navigate?
So in one case, I just moved. I had a manager who was, in my opinion, a jerk. He wasn't a bad person, but he just was egocentric, only cared about himself, and everyone that worked for him was, from his perspective, a pawn in a tool chest, right? I mean, they just wanted to advance their own career, and he was very successful because he was delivering the results for his manager. But everyone else suffered and hated him. To be honest, everyone hated him, and his manager knew that.
Even nice.
And I was very frustrated, and I figured, okay, the only way I can make it work for me is either leave the company or move to another group. And that's eventually I moved to a different group. So if you cannot do anything so try to make an impact, but if you can't, do what it takes move a company or move to a different team.
Yeah. Move to different team. But the other part of the question that I wanted is, what does it do to you? What does it do to your own mental health, to your health, to your confidence, if you continuously find yourself in those kind of situations? Because sometimes women don't even know that this is a toxic environment, because this is probably the first job, or second job. And because usually it's like abuse. The first time it happened to you, you don't even know that this is not the right way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So usually you feel something is wrong, even if you don't want to admit it. So talk to someone about it.
Like that.
Maybe share what you're going through with someone you feel comfortable with. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a coach. Whoever you can, talk to someone and get an external perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I got that out of you. That's good. That's a good one, because I feel like people get stuck, and by the time they come to you or come to me, it's already kind of like late. It's like it's like rotten so much, and it's already eroding. Since I care about women confidence, it's already eroding their confidence, so it's good to pay attention, and it's good that we're having this conversation so people know that. And for me, confidence is like, there's a self-esteem, there's a way people should respect you, and when you don't feel respected, you should know, you should know that this is not how we should behave. And then, as you mentioned, talk about it to somebody, have a coach, have a friend, but definitely having a career coach will definitely open the door for you to realize that this is not the right way. And as we mentioned earlier, having a game plan also help. So I think, those are good recipe, of
and
answer.
also, it takes courage. Even if you talk to someone. I have a woman who is in a, I would say somehow abusive environment. Her boss is, it's not like a physical abuse. It's not a bad person. It is a bad manager. Really. I mean, from what she described, it always drive me nuts. But eventually she needs to make changes, and she has to be courageous.
Right.
So it's about her taking the steps. And a lot of times she kind of messaged me, what do we do now? She's afraid. So the more you suffer, the less courage you have, the more you're afraid to make changes. I believe everything eventually is possible, right? It's never too late. You can build up your confidence back, but the more you are in an abusive situation, the harder it's gonna get.
Yeah, courage. Yeah, I love that. Yes, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, totally. You require courage, because and now I'm gonna wonder, like, why are we not courage? Why are we not courageous to just pick up and go? In your opinion, why are we not courageous to pick up and go? Is that fear? Is that fear of losing the
A
job?
lot of times it's fear. It's fears, afraid of what people are going to think about it, afraid of what if we're going to get a rejection. Think about it. If you want to switch to another job, you have to face a lot of rejections along the way, because typically when you interview, you'll hear more no than yeses in general, right? I mean,
right.
And we're afraid. We're afraid to have someone judge us and tell us no.
Yeah. And also retaliation from the company. Because if you go and talk about it, God forbid, somebody. So not having psychological safety in your company is also a big driver to that, So then people don't feel courageous. Okay. This is so good. This is all good information. I love it. Thank you so much, Limor. Let's shift gear. This is one of the favorite questions that we like to ask people on the podcast, and you have graced us with a lot of good information in terms of like how women should just think about elevating themselves to the next level. But I'm curious for you. We talk about confidence. We just land on like being courageous. What are the things that you have to do to up your confidence every day, your confidence habit?
Yeah, so my confidence habit, I'm looking at what I wrote for you earlier today. So first of all, you may be surprised, but physical activity really helps.
Yes, I'm not surprised. I know because that is mine. That is also mine. So yeah, people might be surprised, but I agree. It is totally a game changer.
Yeah.
Yep.
So whatever it is for you, whatever you like doing, for me, it's running. So I started running in my 40s.
Okay. Okay.
And
I don't feel too bad then. I'm happy. I don't feel too bad.
and I was never, I mean, I'm not considering myself like the most athletic person. I was never athletic. And I had for years, I thought it's not possible for me to run in my 40s. I mean, start running. That's not possible. When I started doing that, it gave me so much confidence. Yes, I could actually run. And I went to races, not for the sake of the competition, but more to prove myself that I can do it. And the more I persisted in doing that, every time it brings me confidence, it inspires me during the runs. I think about different things, some ideas go into my head. So physical activity, number one.
Yeah.
Reading books or listening or meeting with people who lift you up, as I mentioned earlier, really helps me. And I read actually a great book recently that I wanted to mention. I read You Are a Mogul by Tiffany Pham.
Okay.
And it was a great book that just after I read it, I felt, wow, I can conquer the world. I can do everything. So a lot of times when you either listen to a podcast episode or you read a book or you watch a movie or a video or something, or you meet with someone inspiring, it brings you some confidence boost in your abilities.
Yes, totally. That's what we love. Thank you for sharing that. That's what we love talking about confidence habit because I believe it's not something that you just do one time, because
Yeah.
the physical exercise is something you can do every day. I am totally on board. I work out like 5 days a week. So for me, it's like important, it's like the baseline. And I can measure my mood level right after I work out, right? I want to conquer the world. I love running. I love lifting weight too. So that's totally fine. Reading book as well, right? When you read, for me, I feel like reading book is like talking to you, but in a very like I can't talk to everybody on the planet, right? Maybe there's some people that you want to meet, but when they have a book out, it's like you have an inside dinner conversation with them about their life, in a pocket for $35. Why not? So for me, reading a book is really something that I feel like it totally inspired me because you get to learn. And for me, I always love to learn about people experience a life lesson. So, I don't have to make the same mistake. So I feel like we are totally in alignment with that. Usually this part is always like the surprising for me because every guest is different, right? So, but for you, Limon, I think as a coach, it's all in alignment. I actually feel like you are living in your purpose because just talking to you in this conversation, right? How you started as a woman in tech executive and following your passion of helping women, and becoming a coach and really helping women. Because if you're not passionate about that, helping women is like, woof, it's a lot, right? Because they're gonna bring it's like a kitchen sink. They're gonna bring you all kind of situation like a toxic boss. How do I deal with that? So you really have to be passionate about helping people. So thank you so much for being on the Up Your Confident podcast. Do you have any last word of wisdom that you want to share to women that are in this age bracket, 35 or 60, that really want to, go to the next level in their career?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's never too late. It's
Love
never
that.
too late to make changes. I mean, I did a major change in my life, right? I moved countries, left the only thing I knew how to do towards the end of my 40s. So it's never too late. Always learn. Life is a continuous learning, as you mentioned, right? Always learn and grow. I recently took an online course about LinkedIn. I know a lot about LinkedIn, but there was a guy, like a young guy who taught about LinkedIn for business using ChatGPT, and like always learn from everyone, from old, for young, from different people. Continuous learning. It helps with the confidence, but also, you can make changes. Meeting people, reading, as I mentioned, and give back. You cannot imagine how much it helps you when you give back. And I started mentoring as a volunteer, and look what it did for my career. It actually helped me shift my career entirely just because I started volunteering.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. This is all great nugget. Thank you so much for being with us on the podcast. I think I'm gonna have all the information on the show note, and really I hope this is gonna inspire a lot of women into finding the direction, and also how they can, reach out to you to get better guidance in their career. Thank you.
Thank you.